right, let's get the proof out of the way. So this is an offer we scaled from 0 to 35K a month in 62 days with a VSL funnel to launch. Out of that 35K we did the first month, we collected 24K of that so far, and we are now using a hybrid between cold and warm webinars to scale this offer to 100K per month. Here is kind of some of the wallet payments from that so far, just for a little bit of proof. Here are all the submissions we have to get every single day in order to do so, despite our partner only having around 20,000 followers on Instagram, getting between 1 to 5,000 views per reel, so no crazy engagement, around 500 views per YouTube video. So I'm going to go show you the sales systems we use to absolutely squeeze this funnel, and we still are. So let's just go ahead and start with the hiring process, because obviously in order to build a sales system, you need good salespeople. So let's just start with that. Now, where do we source our talent? So a place I've been sourcing my talent for the longest time is Twitter. It's kind of slowed down a little bit recently, but I'm going to talk about some other traffic sources in a second. Instagram, this is definitely one of my biggest ones right now. I'll just throw up an Instagram story saying, I'm taking on some setters, some closers, etc. And I've already got a lot of those sales reps following me, so it makes it super easy for them to just chuck me a loom and maybe apply for the offer. As well, a good source is connections, recruiters. These are in-house reps that I already have on one of my other offers or anything like that. Or maybe just like a connection that I have. Let's say I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy, and they're able to source some reps there, as well as a couple sales mentorships like G-Sales and Precision Closers, and just sales mentorships like this. Blake Max's program is well for closers, as well as my setters in reserve list. Now, this setters in reserve list is basically a sheet I've been building over the past few months that is basically meant to save the setters who I've already interviewed, and kind of just throwing them on a sheet, so that let's say they weren't a good fit for the current offer we were hiring for at the time. I'm able to just give them a quick ring if they were, for example, already interviewed, had a good interview, just weren't right fit for that offer we were specifically hiring for, but I know they're going to be a good fit for an offer that we're hiring for now. Just go give them a quick ring and able to recruit that way. Now, from the recruitment, these people are getting sent to a hiring doc, which basically looks like this. For example, this is a hiring doc we made from one of our clients, really just giving the sales reps a good idea of like what this offer actually is. OTE, just anything really, like letting them know, hey, this is inbound from Instagram or YouTube, or we're running this ads with these kind of funnels. These are the type of leads that you're going to be dealing with. That's kind of just something like that. And at the bottom, we have the form for them to go fill out an application for this, so I can get some more context before the actual interview on everybody's scenario, just so I can get a bird's eye view look at everything. And then usually during this time, I'll set a group interview for like 2 days in advance, say, hey, like we're running this group interview at this date. From these group interviews, I usually only run one, but sometimes there's a bunch of people and I have to run two. From these two, I basically just select the people from good personality type. I could tell we align on a lot of things. Just picking up on some of these guys' demeanor. Sometimes some last minute things come up on these interview calls, and it's just like, all right, bro, like not trying to have you on one of my offers if you're kind of acting like this, or just maybe small things I can pick up in reps from being from hiring them for a little bit now, as well as just like picking up on all the small things that reps don't realize, like listening skills, sometimes their general background and just how they're framing themselves and everything like that. So I kind of got a doc I run through with that. And then I shoot these guys to a second round. These guys are literally getting put through a gauntlet in order to get on one of my teams. Reps are the most important thing. You could have the best systems, have the best managers, have the best offer and everything, but if your sales reps ain't working, and we all know there's a lot of lazy sales reps out there, then you're not really going to do any serious numbers. So it's really about finding the right people at the end of the day. So this round 2 group interview, I'm going a little bit more in depth about, just testing for like what offers they've done before, and like specifically the systems they were using to know how long the learning curve is going to be for them to adapt to one of my offers. Just kind of a market understanding. For example, we're hiring for a Forex trading offer. Obviously that's going to be a lot bigger than some like YouTube automation biz op offer. They're going to have to really understand what they're talking about, especially the higher ticket and the more upper market we go with that offer, as well as just like testing them on if they're able to just like, for example, if I call on someone in an interview, they're able to pick things up just like that, just because they kind of understand how stuff goes, and just testing a lot of this stuff. And then I usually pick 2, 3, sometimes even 4, depending on the offer, of these guys to onboard into a trial period where we put them on a period 30 to 60 days where we go and kind of test out some of these setters. Obviously kind of frame it to them as well, so that they're like, hey, like, I'm not fully on the role yet. I still have to go and put in the work to prove to these sales managers, these operators, that I'm someone who's able to work hard and do stuff and be able to adapt the systems and whatnot, as well as kind of just this is really where you get a good taste of like people's personal life and everything like that. I don't know. I thought I'm kind of just popped out there. But yeah, so that's kind of what the hiring process looks like. Now, from there, I have a pretty extensive SOPs for our sales teams as well. So, for example, breaking down everything, and we're going to go break down the stuff in a second. But I actually run my commission structure a little bit differently than some other people. I call it like basically a Shark Tank model, where instead of setters getting the commissions if they're in the DMs, by simply just like following up the lead and interacting with the lead in DMs and then booking them an appointment, instead of running that model, because sometimes things get weird with like Instagram attribution with all that, even though there's softwares like Mochi and a bunch of these other DM setting softwares. I find those aren't usually the best at attribution. Even like Meta Business Suite isn't super keen with that. So what we do instead is we get the DM setters to basically treat every lead the same, make sure they're obviously following the same framework in the DMs, and we go and they pick up their commission from when they get a lead to apply, they call them, and if that lead closes, then that's who gets the commission. It's not the setter who, for example, sets them from DM to applying. It's the setter that goes and dials them within 60 seconds and make sure they're confirmed on the calendar. If they close, that setter is getting the commission, if that makes sense. And that just allows for an ecosystem of hungry setters who are going and picking up on these leads as soon as they apply, and really being able to incentivize that, as well as just like having these extra little bonuses depending on, like, for example, if we're having a season where we really need the setters to be dialing, or maybe they've been lacking a little bit, kind of giving them a little boost by saying, hey, we're going to 1.5x or 2x the commissions for the closers for this certain time period, or this certain lead, or this certain webinar, or whatever it is. So, for example, if we head into one of our team Discords here, we obviously see all these applications. You notice a lot of teams also do this. I'm not going to pretend like I'm the one that invented it. Most teams do this, but when a new lead comes in, a setter is going to basically communicating to the other setters and saying like, hey, like I got this lead by reacting to the submissions with an emoji in the chat here. Now, one of the most important parts to all my setting teams is just making sure that these setters, you can tell I'm talking a lot about the setters because a lot of like this sales process is making sure that the setters are on point with all this stuff. Obviously, closing is important. Closing a whole different game. I'll speak about that in a minute. But the most important part for setters is making sure they understand their role on the team. I always tell my setters, if you just understand what the fuck you're doing here, you're gonna crush it. If you kind of just like, you're kind of just going through the motions, kind of just like reading the words off the scripts and all these different things, it's not really going to go well because you don't understand what you're even looking for in those questions. You don't know how to probe. You don't know how to, see if they're qualified enough to actually book on the calendar and all these different things. So here is an example of basically a whole general sales system, which I have in SOPs, which I'm going to show you in a second, for the closers to actually, the setters to actually understand their position on the team. So, for example, for this client we run webinars for, we have a full breakdown of how the setters interact inside the sales team so everybody knows their role. So, for example, we run a webinar. Obviously, on the webinar, we're pitching about 80% in, and from the pitch, we're going and dropping an application. Now, when these people go and fill out an application, it'd be dumb for us to just go treat every lead the same. So what we have is lead scoring, and as you can see here in the pipeline, it's going rank them. Like, let's say we've got a qualified guy here, his budget is $5,000 plus, he's got no current income somehow, and all these things. So obviously, 75% of the people that fill out these application forms lie, but regardless of that, we're still going and qualifying these leads as soon as they come in to the Discord here, and we're using certain scripts, which I'm going to talk about in a second, to go dial these leads. Now, obviously, like I said, we're not going to treat every single one of these leads the same, especially when we get a huge bulk of leads right after a webinar. So what we're doing is getting the sales team to go and prioritize basically from the triage that happens from people going and applying, who needs to be dialed first, who needs to be dialed last, and what order we kind of do it for. So on our sales team, we always start with the people who applied, were qualified through the logic and the type form, but didn't book in on the calendar. A lot of people would think, hey, maybe we should go dial these people who are already on the calendar first. When in reality, they're already on the calendar, they're already confirmed, we don't actually have to book them in. So our post, like our non-response post-booking process, is mostly going to take care of some of that stuff. Of course, we're going to go dial them second here, but these people 100% are 110%. the highest priority in making sure that they get on the calendar since they were qualified through Typeform. Second to that is the book calls, which I was just talking about, making sure that these book calls get actually booked and confirmed and set up in group chats with their closers. And then from there, the people who applied but were unqualified through Logic and Typeform, and it basically just redirected them to a page saying that our sales team is going to reach out to them. And then from there, we're going and reaching out to the webinar attendees. And then I guess I don't have it here for this, but obviously our sales teams know to dial the registered leads after the webinar. And not only are they dialing the registered leads after the webinar, but they're also dialing them before, which helps with show rate on the webinar as well. For example, on this first webinar we ran for this offer, we had around 40% show rate mixed between cold and warm traffic, because setters were going and dialing these leads before the webinar even happened. From here, obviously, the main goal is either confirm a DQ with these guys. If we go run through the triage script and they end up being unqualified, at least we know for sure these guys aren't qualified. And we really dig deep. I'm going to show you how we can do that in a second. Or these guys are confirmed booking. These guys are set up in group chats with the closers, with our branding in the group chats, and full context on Stereo, running a whole group chat report sequence, which I'm also going to show you in a second. But from there, obviously, the setter's job is to make sure that these guys are showing up for the call, whatever they need, like messaging these leads in the morning, even. Sometimes our closer goes and triages these calls as well, just kind of get a better understanding of the people he's going to be speaking to and to boost show rate a little bit on his calls. And from there, even when the setter or even when this prospect shows up to the call, let's say he doesn't close, but puts down a deposit, our setters know, hey, job's not done yet, right? Just because got a little payment, just because this guy said he was going to pay more, right? Doesn't mean you just get to, flip up your feet and start wanking yourself, right? You need still need to do some work. Still need to go follow up with these leads. So setters know. Deposit gets put down, we'll jump on that call, going and running basically our no close sequence, which I'll also show you in a second, to go make sure that those guys are taken care of. And then from there, making sure that they're confirmed for the call either tomorrow, the next day, where they're going to be at end up closing. Same with if they show, same with if they confirm the booking and then it doesn't show, which obviously happens as well. Setters know if lead goes reschedules, cancels a call, or no shows, we got to go dial. We got to figure out what happened. Run the no close, reschedule, cancel call, triage sequence as well. Get them back on the calendar if it's needed, and if they're confirmed to queue, then basically just queue them. But other than that, from the no close as well, a couple times people just kind of leave these no closes, and it leaves money on the table because a lot of these times, a lot of these guys can get downsold, or at the very least, at the very most, we can get these people back on the calendar if there's like a little misunderstanding, or we were able to objection handle in text, in the DMs, and DM close after the call even happened, right? We've gotten 5-10K piss from doing this. And the reason why is because sometimes leads will schedule calls on the calendar with closure. Closure says something maybe you wasn't supposed to, or maybe the frame wasn't there, the rapport wasn't there, something was kind of off, and they kind of just give this excuse on call, being like, yeah, I'll go deposit money in the bank tomorrow, I'll go do this thing, XYZ, they hop off the call, DM setters go and DM them on our partner's account on Instagram, acting as basically our partner, saying like, hey, like, what kind of ended up happening with that call, like, I didn't really get a good understanding from the closer what happened, like, how are you doing, like, how did you feel that call went? And these prospects bring up a whole different problem, which they didn't bring up at the closer on call. We end up handling that objection on the call and end up closing that deal. And then, yeah, so that's happened an amount of times I can't even explain. Or, obviously, you get the close, everything's all hunky-dory, and everything's kind of working. Now, obviously, like I mentioned before, we got a ton of SOPs. We got over 47 plus SOPs, 2.5 hours of content for this one sales team alone here, for example, on everything you can ever think of. How to navigate the Looker Studio dashboard, which basically shows all the KPIs from them. Either whether it's DM setting, whether it's the dialing to make sure like, hey, if this guy's slacking, he goes onto the Looker Studio dashboard, sees the other dialer has this many dials today, and he's only got this. It's going to motivate them a lot more to kind of stay at the part. And so they kind of have the expectation of tomorrow I'm going to come in, I'm going to make sure I'm not the setter kind of like lower down. I'm going to show you that in a second. Kind of the commission structure I just broke down there as well as an overview of the kind of sales system for, like, example, if we're running a webinar, how to fill out EODs. A lot of times, sometimes setters or like these salespeople will go and fill out their EOD wrong, and then you have to go like scram to go and fix that because it kind of plays into tracking and it's just a mess. So we have an EOD to kind of take care of that, as well as how they can literally calculate how much they're going to make on this offer based off the Looker Studio dashboard. an analysis of, for example, our attended webinar scripts, our registered for webinar script. I'm probably gonna have to blur a lot of stuff out because this is genuinely thought can leak, as well as a general sales system overview, for example, for a VSL funnel and not for a webinar. Full triage and guides, make sure we're keeping good hygiene in the pipeline, as well as a high-level task management kind of SOP there. Setting script overview and how that kind of plays into the pipeline. We're using high level because close is a whole other deal. I'm not even willing to speak about it in this video. Pre-scheduling breaks so we know everybody's schedule like beforehand instead of kind of just like trying to scramble everything away. And then again, an analysis on each of the scripts, each of the frameworks that our setters are going using to triage these leads. As you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, my group chat report sequence, but we've got all of these basically set up so that every single triage event that could ever happen in a pipeline, we got to go dial them. We know our setters are going and following the right framework in order to get them to take whatever action we're getting them to take on these calls. As you can see, go in depth and I have an analysis on every single one to make sure, like for example, know exactly why they're asking this question, what they're kind of probing for in this question, how to future pace with this question, or how to kind of do the math on the opportunity cost, and kind of really just having a mini sales call almost instead of just like saying, hey, do you have money or not? Like, that's not really the best setting process, as you can probably imagine there. Now, definitely going to have to blur this data out, but this is a dashboard that literally goes and tracks every activity that our DM setters and our phone setters are going and taking. So for example, you can see this day, maybe I'll try to unblur this, but this day, one of our setters sent 566 DMs and absolutely crushed the KPIs for any other day he was doing before. I even double checked them. I'm like, hey, did you fill your EOD right? He said, yeah, filled it right. And I went and confirmed that and it looked good. So this is an example. Where obviously one of our setters was super motivated that day to literally go and show, hey, I'm able to do more input than the other setters to really show. And now the setter is full-time internal in our agency, and we place him on whatever offer, make sure he's all packed up with his capacity, and he's kind of taken care of by us, which is awesome to know. But we also have this for follow-ups. We have, obviously, I'm going to have to blur these, but we have the reply rates here. We can literally go and filter by names. For example, we want to go see what specific reply rate Josh has on his DMs. We see, okay, he has XYZ number. Whereas we go to Sanith and we know, okay, well, Sanith has this problem because his reply rate is XYZ number, or maybe his booking rate. And so we kind of know when to point individual setters out and maybe go analyze their specific setting practice and how they're kind of looking at, as well as literally tracking everything from speed to lead to the person who's generating the most revenue on the team, who's booking the most amount of calls versus who's taking home the majority amount of revenue. As you can see here, like on this day, June 22nd, I think we shut off the VSL funnel because we were running webinars around this day, but our setter had an average speed to lead time of 1 minute, which is 60 seconds, which obviously is something you want to see on every single sales team. And that is kind of the overview on some of our sales process. You want to go message me on Instagram, it's the only link in the description. Other than that, ciao.